Hello, and welcome to what I think is going to be the final part of this gigantic manga extravaganza. We started looking at the list of series I have completed and marked as completed on Manga Dex. We talked about all of these. I just want to kind of go through in case it gets reordered again. But I think all the ones on this page were good. We got into the second page. We talked about up to here, yeah, and then Mob Psycho. Oh man, I love Mob Psycho. I'm totally re-enamored with this series again from watching the third season of the anime. I think this is just a beautiful, beautiful series. We're giving it 2 stars. I think the career of one as a mangaka is something that's really going to be admired more and more from as the years go on, that he was able to make such a huge impact and so single-handedly bring about so many creative visions that became such runaway hits, like, well, not really being what we would expect from a manga artist, and that he can't, draw. But I think one of the most beautiful things in manga is seeing someone's abilities grow, just comparing the early chapters with later chapters. He becomes so much more technically proficient. He gets such a better grasp of perspective and action, impact, and speed. All these qualities that he really brings to bear in all of his fight scenes. Because I think what makes one so special is that even though he doesn't really have this sort of technical mastery, he has no qualms about trying to draw that stuff. That even if we look at the earliest chapters, when we get into these big action scenes, when we get into the really dramatic moments, there's so much attempted. There's so much of a vision that he does his absolute best to bring to the page. His absolute breast. I love this story. I love all of the characters. I love how much development everyone gets. All these arcs of self-reflection and revelation and coming to understand better your role in the world and what you can do and what you want to do and the connections you want to make. I think the escalation of all of the kind of danger and threats and externalities is very, very well done. They never kind of make anything relevant, but just very slowly develop kind of some like world building factors. Oh, there's other psychics. Oh, what if there was an evil team of psychics? What if there was a cult of people that knew about Mob and started worshiping him? What if there was evil spirits? Like, these sorts of ideas just sort of trickle in and manifest themselves more and more. And I think this is just like a real testament to how good one is at world building, especially in his way of implementing what I would call kind of like a loose world building. I talked about this a long time ago in an anime video talking about Osama ranking. And I don't know, I don't want to get into it right now. This video is going to be long enough as is, but it's just like leaving himself open to introduce examples of so many elements that he had hinted at and foreshadowed, but no sense of obligation, no sense of kind of an insignificantizing anticipation where you're told, oh, there's like the 12 great psychics and Mob doesn't measure up to these 12 great psychics, and instead it kind of just feels like things will emerge as they do, but it makes sense when they do emerge, that it all kind of takes place in a coherent world that's just so unique, just so friendly and interesting, and oh man, it's so good. I can't wait to finish the anime. I'm almost there. What an amazing series. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. This is a very strange one. I think we talked about this when it was in the currently reading tab, and then I bumped it over here to the finished tab. Really bizarre, kind of claustrophobic, anxious office comedy between the demonic, almost animalistic Ozanari-kun and the section chief, who is very meek and vulnerable and harbors a secret love for Ozanari-kun, despite Ozanari-kun, or perhaps because of Ozanari-kun, constantly tormenting him. A really weird one. It feels like Inio Asano, who of course has such psychologically complex works, really kind of like unleashed a very odd personal thing here. That this is maybe some sort of weird manifestation of his fears of an office job and kind of the psychosexual hell that can be created when you're kind of entrapped in a space with people that you don't otherwise have anything to do with. A strange one, an interesting one. This was a series by the person who did Senko-san, so I checked it out on the strength of that. It's alright, I don't know. This, again, we've talked a bit about this genre. Oh, somebody with a super sketchy past and who's been hardened by a life of crime or whatever, has to raise a kid, has to do domestic stuff, has to learn about that side of life. It's fine. This one has a couple other little twists and stuff. Oh, what is this girl's actual past? What is her future? Since she's like homeless and stuff, it kind of leans into that aspect a little more. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. This is a gag series, a parody of This Croc Will Die in 100 Days. I've rated it a 10, it seems. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is a series that ended somewhat recently. I think I maybe talked about it in the currently reading section and then bumped it over to this one because it has indeed finished. I don't know. It's cute. It's fun. It's, despite it being about sexual harassment, it's not really like fan servicey. They just kind of have lewd discussions. Instead, it's just kind of a lot of gags about the type of animals that these girls in the school are kind of like manifested from. It runs the whole gambit from any type of normal animal girl you can think of to your traditional monster girls to really abstract girls by the end. The fact that they just had to keep introducing new girls led to some really bizarre ones, which was fun. And of course, taking such strange concepts and trying to figure out where their erogenous zones and stuff are is pretty much the entire comedy of the series. But it's fun. I like the art style too. It's just very sharp, very clean. Does this artist do anything else? I'd be interested to read it. No. This was a series that at first you might be like, oh, it's suggestive soccer. Oh, great. But no, this is actually really good. I'm gonna give this a star. This is one of my favorite sports series I've read in quite some time. I think the art is fantastic. It's not really that fan servicey. Generally, they all go to the bathhouse after every game, and you get to see boobs, sure. But they don't really like get driven by fan service. The actual action of the series is focused on soccer and takes like a really good strategic look at the game through the lens of like characterization, you know? So you really see how the psychology of each character, what they want, what they're afraid of, what they're good at, what they're bad at, manifests onto the soccer field, and then how the team strategizes around those abilities and weaknesses and stuff. This is another series that I think does a really good job of looking at the opponent teams, looking at their key players, looking at their own conflicts and arcs and stuff, making you really empathize with them, making you really understand what's driving them and motivating them, which again manifests itself in the actual strategy of the soccer matches, which is, you know, really fun and really compelling. It's like Saki, where you actually get kind of attached to the enemy teams, and then there's just chapters of them after they've lost. Suffering. There's also like a romance element here where the main character is in love with this super ace player that she used to play with when they were both kids, and he's now the coach of the girls' team, and kind of like all the girls have crushes on him, and it's like this weird motivating jealousy thing that they all want to like show each other up in front of him, but that becomes like less and less important, I think, because the author realized that a lot of people reading this are just going to be shipping the girls with each other. Obviously I was in that camp, but so if you're interested in this and that kind of turns you off at first, just know that it becomes less and less of a factor. But yeah, I think this is really good. I really enjoyed how deep they got into each match too. Like a single match will be like multiple volumes, and you're really seeing every play broken down. What's the significance of it on the game? How is it changing what the characters are thinking and strategizing? It kind of reminds me of Fukumoto like that. Yeah, I really, really like this one. I think it's super underrated. I think a lot of people dismiss it pretty quickly because of some fan servicey elements or some corny romance elements, but if you like sports series, if you like soccer, I think this is really worth diving into. I'm not really sure how to rate all of these Kaiji arcs. We already talked about part 6, which I think I gave 2 stars to, perhaps, maybe, or only 1. I don't remember. I feel like Kaiji is pretty consistent quality. I know some people dislike some of the arcs, and some of the arcs are like absolute classics to them. But I've always felt like it's done a good job kind of keeping up the signature tension and all the twists and every villain being like really powerful and stuff. This arc, I especially have fond memories of, I think, because I made a ton of chapter videos while I was reading this. Unfortunately, these days I can't really keep up with making videos, reactions for each chapter I'm reading of all these different series, but this was the Kaiji arc that I think I explored the most in video, and I can remember making big diagrams breaking down, okay, what is all the knowledge that Kazuya knows? What is all the knowledge that Kaiji knows? This trades off with this trades off with this. It was really great fun, and I think this is one of the most intricate gambles in any Fukumoto series in terms of that complexity, in terms of just like the layers of knowledge and assumption and counter assumption and stuff. It's a really great series. It's just such straightforward gambling. The gimmick, of course, is that it's one poker. You're playing poker, but each of you only submit one card. And then it becomes this sort of resource management battle where it's like, well, I could submit my best card, but then if it loses to Kazuya's best card, then I'm like totally down. So maybe I just sacrifice my weaker card. If my weaker card can beat his weaker card, blah, 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 blah. Even just trying to give a brief overview of the strategy, you can see that it very quickly gets into these like circular, swirling vortexes of assumption. I think it really made for a great gamble. Kazuya is just such a great character. I love him so much. But I don't know. I want to give like 2 stars to the whole Kaiji series, I guess. I don't think it makes any sense to just read this one arc. You're going to be reading it from the start, I hope. So, you know, it is what it is. This was another cross-dressing series. Wow, we've seen a lot of these. Ha 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 ha. I'm sure that doesn't mean anything, that I've been reading these for years and years. This one is actually pretty recent. It's just kind of like Twitter-sized comics at first that became a full-on series about this guy who has a very feminine, attractive friend that wants to try on all sorts of women's clothing, and they kind of make a little scene of it, a little lifestyle of it. I like it because it's kind of so the kindness between the friends. It's not just fetishy, and it's not just kind of dramatic or anything. I don't know. I remember it being quite nice in that regard. This is the first part of Nakamura-kun. I actually just now remembered to order the second volume of Nakamura-kun, which I will be reading shortly. Is this getting scanlated yet? Oh, it has been. All right, excellent. Oh, I've marked it. Okay, all right, whatever. I love this series. This gets a star. This is one of my favorite BL series. It's just extremely fluffy, extremely funny, very low-key, very cute. Neither, you know, the dreaded treadmill of no progression, nor does it rush too much. It's not unrealistic in any way, shape, or form. I really like both of the main characters. Our kind of protagonist character especially, I think, is a really interesting archetype where he's sort of like shy and flustered and a little strange, but he's not like unrealistically so. He's not hopelessly so. It's just kind of putting him in this difficult situation that he kind of brings some awkwardness to it, which is a lot of fun. Um, I also really like that just right from the start, he's like, well, I'm a gay man. I'm attracted to men. I know this about myself. This isn't going to be kind of like a all about that sort of self discovery or whatever. And then he just, he's like, I'm going to do my best to get closer to this guy because I think he's really cute. It has like a really nice simplicity to it. Very good. This was about a shark girl. I remember like there's like multiple shark girl manga all happening at once. I like this idea of just kind of like not actually anthropomorphization or whatever. It's just a girl that reminds you of some sort of animal. And how do you navigate the territory of a shark girl? There wasn't too much notable about this, but it was fine. This was a fun series about this girl who is a super dignified, very perfectionist, very high achieving class president type. But really, the reason she works so hard and focuses so much is that so she can finish her work as soon as possible and then discreetly sleep at her desk without anyone knowing. And she's come up with all sorts of strange tricks and apparatuses to keep her asleep, despite, class going on around her and her having to sit upright at her desk. So at the start, it's just that kind of gimmick and gag where each time her desk neighbor notices that she's actually asleep and figures out what kind of scheme she has to get away with it. Then there's a lot of like explorations of what makes a good sleep and what are like good enchanting opportunities to sleep. Oh, I really like sleeping during school assemblies. Today I'm going to figure out a way to sleep during PE. So there's that kind of like adventure to it too, which is fun. Really kind of getting into the sensory qualities of sleep. And then, quite naturally, I think, this sort of romance blooms where the desk neighbor realizes that he actually has a crush on our sleeping princess. And that develops, I think, in a very sweet, nice way, too. Yeah, good stuff. This I read because it's very, very critically acclaimed. It's like super sad core. It's about this girl who has pancreatic cancer, and she develops this very fast friendship with someone, and basically kind of wants to live out certain experiences before she dies. It's very kind of like poetic and intense in that regard, and has a lot of kind of like distant revelation type experiences of at first she said such and such and I was aghast, but then later I realized I heard those words from a girl who knew she was going to die and she's only 16. Just kind of that over and over again. I don't know. I wasn't actually like that into it, as maybe you can tell from my description of it. It felt very contrived, I guess. Like, it didn't really feel like this story was emerging from an actual, like, lived-in world with people in it, but instead was just kind of this immediate story with characters that just wanted to skip to every cry-worthy beat. So then people could go, 10 out of 10, I cried. Well, I didn't cry. There were moments that were, like, moving. There were moments that were quite endearing. But it just never really got me caught up in it. It just, again, kind of felt so flat, I guess I would say. I know it's like a novel originally. Maybe the novel is a little more characterized, has a little more life to it. But I'm not really all that interested. This one is even higher rated. Oh my goodness. Huh. Interesting. Well, I'm I don't regret reading this or anything, right? Like, I want to read all of these series that are kind of part of the cultural conversation around manga. And even if I personally don't like it, it is what it is. This was a cute little 4-koma about girls who are into cheerleading. It got a Dogokobo adaptation, which I watched and enjoyed, so then I went to the manga. And it's nice. I don't know. It's basically your archetypical 4-koma, 4 girls. It's a club. You learn stuff about cheerleading. I really like that. I really thought it was fun. The way they like made their own equipment, the way they formed their routines and stuff. One of the main characters is this girl who's like an absolute ace at cheerleading, that is kind of at a loss because she left one team because she was kind of like taking it too more seriously than everyone else. And the whole gimmick of her personality is that when she's not cheerleading, she's like extremely stone-faced and stoic and humorless. And then as soon as she starts cheerleading, it's like a total snap, and she's like the most bright, happy, joyful person you could imagine. I thought that was fun. I don't know. The other characters I don't remember so well, but it's fine. Good times. This was like a meme series that someone was posting on A for a while, and then it got put on Manga Dex, which is where I first read it. It's about watching paint dry. And again, it's another one that has kind of memed its way into the 9 tier, but almost every chapter is like this, but small interludes happen. I don't know. I like stuff like this. It kind of reminds me of the famous endurance artist Benjamin Bedent, who just sitting and smiling, sorry. Who just sits and smiles facing the camera for 4 hours at a time, days and days and days on end, with occasional incidents. And similarly, this series goes on and on and on. We got really lucky there that we actually saw a chapter where such an incident happens as the delivery person showing up. But yeah, I think this is neat. I'm not going to give it like a star or anything, this sort of silly experiment, but it is what it is. This is another series by the person who did Mimi Mix, which is the one about getting animal ears surgically implanted on you. This one is sort of similar in that it's like kind of high concept and it doesn't super shy away from that, where this woman starts working at a game development company and everybody else who works there is literally like a goddess, and they represent a pretty cool like broad pantheon from like different religions. There's like an ancient Greek goddess Athena type. There's like a Valkyrie from like, you know, Viking stuff. There's like a fox spirit. I liked that a lot. I thought that was fun. Of course, they're all extremely horny and there's a lot of fan service and stuff. Sure. I also really liked one of their coworkers, one of their like main programmers is just a dog. It's just like a Shiba Inu, but it can like talk and sit at the computer and work, and I think it's like really, really cute, and I just enjoyed every single chapter where it showed up. But yeah, I again, it's like they could have made it a lot simpler. They could have had this exact premise, and then it's just like, oh haha, they're gods. Anyways, here's their boobs. Which they do, but they also have like they have to deal with, you know, being summoned back to their respective afterlife and dealing with like administrative stuff and talking about the ethics of them just working away on video games when they have these like supernatural powers and aren't they supposed to be like helping humanity or whatever. Talking about, oh, they're making this like gotcha game which has all of these like very addictive exploitive events and stuff. Like, is that okay? It's just kind of interesting the way this person writes, where they seem so caught up in their own premises that they can't just kind of like make it simple. Okay, it's not Yuri. Yeah, we got a lot of pretty common themes here. I was just curious if they had started any other long-running series. This is like another BL series. I don't remember this one too well. Did I put this in the wrong category? I don't remember this. I'm going to put it back to plan to read. Because I don't remember it. It looks okay. It's BL. That's fun. No explanation for that. This is a fun little GL series about a family of 4 sisters, all of whom are lesbians and all have their own relationships. I liked how it kind of bounced around. You can see from the chapter titles that each chapter focuses on a specific relationship, but then of course there's scenes where they're all together and they're discussing their love lives and stuff. I just remember it being cute. I liked how they're all like different stages of their lives. So you get kind of like workplace stuff and then high school stuff. And yeah. Okay. So Nagata Kabi has been releasing a series of one, or I think the only time it was two was my solo exchange diary, but just under different titles, she's releasing this series of autobiographical one-volume comics. I have all of them that have been released in English somewhere around here. Yeah. It's becoming a nice thick stack. And there's another one that's released in Japan that hasn't been translated yet that I'm going to pick up as soon as it has. So we'll be kind of looking at this as if it's one big series, although the reason that she splits up them into different volumes is significant, and they talk about kind of different phases of her life. But at the same time, they are all about her life, and they're all about her experiences. And to give you a sense of what they're like, the chapters, or the titles are My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, My Solo Exchange Diary 1 and 2, My Alcoholic Escape from Reality, and My Wandering Warrior Existence. These are not happy. These are not at all happy. She has a lot of problems. I think psychologically, and then in her upbringing, and then just sort of navigating the hellishness that is modern society. She goes through a lot. And I'm kind of laughing, but it's not funny. But I think these are really beautiful works in that she is able to express all of the things going on in her mind through kind of diagrams and through visuals. Scoot, scoot, scoot. What? Why doesn't just webcam work? This one works. You can see on this page the way she kind of uses visual metaphors and diagrams to express how she's feeling and how she kind of sees the structure of her psychology with regard to everything else that's happening around her. And it's really, really fascinating, and it's really relatable at times, really well expressed. I think the art is really, really good too. Again, she's someone who isn't traditionally super technically skilled, but instead is kind of coming from the outside, but has come up with like a visual language for herself and her expressions and the world around her that's like really, really effective. And then I say she's not so technically talented. She's not Murata or Miura or whatever. But no, she's like really good too. And I think these little environmental panels and pages and stuff have such a charm to them. Yeah, these are fantastic. I'm gonna give these 2 stars. This kind of overall multi-series. This girl's love tag, I think, is a little suspect. But it's really, really good. Oh, actually, no, that's appropriate to this one. She goes on some dates in this one. I'm just really amazed at the courage and conviction it takes for her to keep writing these diary comics, even though a theme in the later comics, and I always find this so fascinating when works get to this point, is that she's writing about the impact her earlier comics have had on her life, which is overall mixed. In some ways positive, in some ways very, very negative. But she's still doing it. She still puts herself out there like no scarred. She feels like a a deep duty to push through her life using this as a tool. And she makes a lot of progress too. Like, things go bad for her. She falls into vices, she falls into addictions, she gets into trouble, but the problems she solved, she does move past things. She does get over complexes. She does make revelations that stick and matter. And I think it's like such an honest look at what it's like to work through mental health problems, that it's not a linear path, but it is a path forward. Or it can be, at least. You try to make it, even if it's a very jagged, meandering, confusing path, you move forward on that path. It's great. Check it out. Popular Senpai, a one-shot. Oh, this looks cute. Oh, this artist looks familiar. I probably read it because of the artist. Well, that's good. Okay. Meizan Ikoku we talked about in the currently reading stuff. I moved it over here. Adachi Toshimamura. This has been adapted a couple times from the original light novels. Most of the stuff I said about the other one that's currently being scanlated applies to this one too, where I really liked the sense of kind of like abandonment and distance in the main Yuri plotline. It's sort of similar to what I was praising Higashiyama Show for, with series like Prism, but it's just a lot of like extraneous stuff that I think kind of bogs it down. So, you know, it's nice, but it's not my absolute favorite. Here's another Nagata Kabi one. We already talked about this. It's a very silly fan service series, The Cherry Teacher Sakurai Naoki. I don't know. It's basically this bumbling, good-hearted teacher who keeps getting himself in very lewd situations because the girls in his class lust over him. But I don't know. I don't remember all that much about it. Just kind of a non-impactful ecchi series that I read on a whim. This is the pre-serialization of the series that became When Will Ayumu Make His Move, which is about, you know, the guy in the shogi club. He's trying to confess to this girl. He wants to beat her at shogi first. I praised that one. It's nice. And this as well is nice. It looks basically the same. They just moved to an actual manga format instead of just Twitter comics. This is a very bizarre series about the creation of sake. So this is the woman who writes and illustrates Saki Kobayashi Ritz, whatever, and her trials and tribulations in bringing Moe Mahjong to the world. The artist is the same person who did that super over-the-top series that I was talking about in the currently reading videos, where all the world leaders are playing this like hyper-extreme Mahjong with each other. So this is also within that style. I don't know. I don't remember all what happens, but I remember a chapter where she's trying to convince the woman who voices Goku to voice act for the series, and then she just like acts like Goku, and she goes like Super Saiyan to fight Ritz and stuff. Yeah, there she is. Oh man. So good. Very silly. This is a really nice one. So there was a thread on 2channel, which is like the Japanese 4chan equivalent, anonymous posting place, where this girl, whatever, this high schooler talks about how she wants to figure out the weakness of her seemingly perfect classmate. And then through all these posts, she kind of admits, you know, I kind of have a crush on her. I want to get close to her. Spoiler alert, they actually do. They the feelings are mutual and they start dating. And this is a manga adapting that thread. So you can see the posts that she makes, reporting in on their latest progress, and the posts she gets in reply. So this is like a really kind of fun element. And they don't they don't make it any tamer or saner or more sanitary than it actually was, as you would expect from an anonymous image board or text board in this case. There's a lot of very vulgar posts being made, which kind of gives the whole series like a very interesting tone, I think, because the actual romance itself is like very fluffy, but then her discussions of it on 2channel are anything but. But I really like this one. I think the art is very cute. I think the way it develops is very well paced, very exciting. I think they did like a good job kind of conveying the reality of it. There's even stuff where they wrote each other letters, and she took pictures of the letters they wrote each other, and then those are included as photographs within the series. Just the fact that it's real, and it reminds you that it's real, and that this really happened, I think makes it kind of unique and exciting and fun. This is another early Fukumoto series. I think this is the one where I was like, yeah, this is interesting. You can start to see Fukumoto kind of branch out beyond the mahjong. Is it? Or am I thinking of yet another one? It's just the way it ends. Oh, yeah. No. This one is not the one I'm thinking of either. But yeah, this one still is like pretty deep within just playing mahjong, but it's nice. We Can't Study. We already talked about this one in the Viz video, so I don't really need to get into it. This is a Higashiyama show series that I feel like is weaponized revenge against the Yuri community for canceling Stretch. Or canceling Prism, I'm sorry. So Stretch is a lovely little series about these two roommates who help each other do stretches, and it actually teaches you the stretches. And for a while, I was making videos on this series, and I was like trying to do the stretches as well, which, you know, hit or miss. So like that's really cool. I like manga that teach you stuff. And then they had little slices of their life outside the stretching as well. And everyone reading this, knowing Higashiyama Show had just written a Yuri series that abruptly got canceled, thought, oh hey, these two are gonna get together. There's so much chemistry. There's so much intimacy. They're already so accustomed to each other's bodies. It felt like it was building to that. Like they were legitimately getting closer and closer. It's not just that I have my Yuri goggles strapped on extra tight. This was deliberate Yuri baiting. And then, I'll spoil it for you. It's not a super suspenseful series where this spoiler will matter. But if you look at the reviews, there's this 18 people. These 18 people are Yuri fans that got burned. Because the way this ends is the roommate just moves out. And they just don't see each other anymore. It's like one of the biggest anticlimaxes I've seen in all of manga history, that it just ends. Oof. But it's fine. This is a really weird one. I mentioned it briefly because I had put another one of this guy's series on my plan to read list, and I was like, what the heck is that? Well, it's because I was actually quite impressed in a very weird way with this series. So the premise at first kind of seems like another one of your Yatsuba, your Midoromi-sans, where a single father is raising a daughter. But very quickly you realize this guy is weird as hell, and this whole situation is shady as hell, and what the hell is going on? Well, he kidnapped this girl because he thought this girl was being abused. And she was, but it's way more complicated than that. He's been living off his dead father's social security checks, hiding his corpse so people don't know he's dead. He himself is a huge pervert and lolicon and was actually planning on abusing the girl he kidnapped, but then didn't have the heart to do it. He's buds with this police officer who's extremely suspicious of him. Basically, everyone he meets is suspicious of him, and they're right to be. But he keeps encountering people that are even more deplorable than him, giving him some weird, twisted sense of morality. He's a huge otaku, too, and is teaching his kid about Ultraman and stuff. It's so weird. Taking inspiration from his own experience as a parent, well, so weird. So weird. And then the twists just keep coming. And it doesn't feel like contrived. It doesn't feel like forced drama or anything. You really do get a sense that this author had this bizarre, grotesque master plan in mind from the very start. And it doesn't really feel like it's meant to be sort of like a thrill ride, but rather just something that kind of pulls you deeper in a strange direction to how bizarre and surreal this scenario is. I think the art style is really cool too. The characters are like really dynamic. There's a lot of kind of like imagination space where the characters, in a Monogatari-esque way, can like conjure up the things that they're discussing or thinking about. Yeah, it's good. I think it's actually quite good. It's just so weird. Okay. Here's another series by Nemo, who I praised a lot when talking about Cupram's Bride and Madarami-chan. This was the series that I think really established their reputation. This is one that a friend of mine, it's among his favorites. He recommended it to me. I really, really liked it. It's kind of like this Shakespearean love quadrangle situation where we have a lot of cross-dressing. We have a lot of unrequited loves. We've got a lot of circles of crushes. We've got a lot of extreme misunderstandings. Characters with extreme personality traits, like can't talk to men or is so hyper and forgetful that things just bounce off of her. And then throughout multiple arcs, we kind of just have all of these characters and situations shoved together into some scenario where they're all coming and going and popping in and out. Like, it really feels very Shakespearean. And I say that as high praise. I think this is another one where the strength of characterization is just so good because you're always focalizing through different perspectives and not just seeing... I've made this praise for so many series, and you know, this one's getting a star too. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. It's always like so fascinating to me to see that like double lensing with double character growth, where you have the perspective of someone as seen by someone else, and then you get a totally different perspective when they're seen by a different person, and it's really, really good. The art is phenomenal, adorable, compelling in its characterization and the facial expressions. That's amazing. What a what a great face. Very good. Okay. The last one we'll talk about before we wrap up this long series of videos for good is the Department of Corporate Slave Rabbits, Usagimoku Shachikuka. This is a bizarre, silly little series about some rabbits who fall to Earth from the moon, having been fired from the mochi factories on the moon, which are basically like Japanese black companies in terms of working these poor little rabbits to death. They know nothing of the human world. All they know how to do is work. In fact, if they stop working, they melt into little puddles. And the poor sap, who they happen to land on the porch of, is forced to give them some sort of tasks to do, or else their death will be on his hands. But they are almost more trouble than they're worth as they try to clean his apartment and fix food and do everything else. It's kind of like an anti-Senko-san, where instead of like the sensory bliss and the lovely enchanting world of having Senko-san take care of you, This is like two little chaotic rabbit gremlins are tearing apart your life. And it doesn't really get much more sedimental or soft or sweet or anything. It just kind of keeps up this cruel gag, which I think is very fun. What I would love to see is an adaptation of this series by Space Neko Company and Kamikaze Doga, who have done Pop Team Epic and Gallon Dinosaur. I think this is like an absolute perfect fit for them, and they could have tons and tons of fun with it. And it's a good series. Oh, that's right, that's right. See, working with B Cub, working with our Pop Team Epic hero. Whoa, I don't know about this. This is on my plan to read, I think, already. Oh, it's on my reading. Okay. Oh, they only did... Oh, okay. Alright, well, we'll put it as plan to read. Okay, that's it. I think that's it. I think that's all I can think to do, though. It's not actually all the manga I've read, by any stretch. Like, just thinking about it, if we search for somebody like this, I've read pretty much all of these. Actually, there's a few I haven't. But, what in the world? What is this one? Yeah? Oh, it's a one-shot. Okay. One shot. Anyways, I've there's so much more manga that I've read that's just not captured here. Stuff that I got from the library when I was a kid. Stuff that I randomly bought volumes of in my teens. Stuff that I read from my university's library, which actually has one of the best manga collections I've ever seen. When I was doing my undergrad, I read a lot of like really classic series there, like a lot of Tezuka. I read Nausicaa. I read Akira. I read Lone Wolf and Cub there. All these series that I read on one manga. Remember one manga? Remember Batoto? So many series I read on those that are just kind of lost to time. Series that I read in independent scanlation groups that weren't hosted on an aggregate, that I would read for years, just going to their website, downloading the latest chapter in a zip file of a bunch of JPEGs. And it's kind of sad, but I'll never be able to track them all down. Like, sure, some will come to mind. I was able to name some there. I know there's tons of Inio Asano stuff. Like, sporadically, I'm going to be able to figure out all of these, but there's no master tracker, no master index. And it would be kind of cool. Wait, why did I go blurry? It would be kind of cool to try to make Mangadex that spot. And to, you know, even if the chapters aren't there, even if I didn't read it on here, to index it here and to have that memory. But I think to an extent as well, I just kind of have to accept that I am going to forget about some of these. Even when I have the prompt, even when I'm looking through the completed, and I'm like, I don't remember this. It just happens. It's just part of life. There's a whole bunch on Dynasty scans too. I don't really go here very often because I'm not reading a ton of Yuri these days. But, like all of these were series that I was reading. Oh man, all the Morinaga Milk stuff. Yeah, this was an attempt. This was an attempt to comprehensively look at all the manga that's part of my life, but it's very insufficient. It's very just one layer. This is a good list. We got some banger doujinshi in here. And you know what? I actually was able to find a lot of these in Japan. This is a whole other thing too. I love manga and I love doujinshi just as much. I mean, I'm not even talking about lewd doujinshi, but just yuri romance doujinshi, all the Love Live doujins that got me into TMNR, the Aki Eda, Kurage Taro. I love this guy. All of these doujins are just amazing. I think they're just masterpieces. I read one of them on the channel. I read this one. There's just so much. And sometimes I get so overwhelmed thinking about how many wonderful things I've read and how many wonderful things are out there that I haven't discovered yet, and how many things are out there that haven't even been written yet. And it's times like these that I feel very young, and I realize that the majority of my life is still to come. And that becomes an exciting feeling for me. That's not always an exciting feeling for me. But I really do love manga. I love reading manga, and I can't ever imagine myself stopping. So who knows when I'll make another video like this again. It took a long time. I hope you enjoyed watching through all of these series. Please recommend me even more series. I surely need even more. I'm serious. I want to know, what great things are you reading that I don't know about yet? And that's it. Happy New Year. Please keep watching the Keats the YouTube channel in 2023. Goodbye for now.